My name is Keith Swain, and I've been teaching foreign languages to adults since about 1994, and a lot of that has been Spanish. Today I want to talk about how you break out of beginner's Spanish and get beyond the point where you can survive but really communicate comfortably and speak easily with native speakers and not sound like such a gringo. Let's talk about it. Let me recommend a book to you that I think is fantastic, and I've been recommending this to my students for years. I read the whole thing cover to cover many times. I've used it for teaching and for preparing lessons. Let me show you this book. It's called Breaking Out of Beginner's Spanish, which coincidentally is the name of this video, written by Joseph Keenan, and it's published by, I believe it was University of Texas Press, but you can find it on Amazon. There's a version with a different cover, but it's the same book. It's an excellent book, and it's worth looking for. Not expensive either. To be able to speak Spanish well enough that you can survive is pretty easy. I've told my students that if all you knew was the present tense, you can talk about the past and the present and the future. We do this all the time in English. We use the present to talk about the future and the past. We'll say things like, tomorrow I'm in Vancouver and I'm having coffee with my friend, and we're talking about business. And then you can talk in the past the same way. You say, yesterday I'm at the office and my computer goes crazy and I smashed the computer. I was using the present tense to talk about the past and the future. You can do that in Spanish for a long time, and you can actually function and live even without learning all the other tenses in Spanish. But if you really want to break out of beginner Spanish, you've got to get beyond that. And you'll have to learn a little bit of grammar. Whether you study it as grammar, I love studying grammar. I really enjoy it. But whether you study it explicitly as grammar or just sort of get the hang of it and start to pick up things and be able to say things in the past in the way that a Spanish-speaking person would, because that's what you want to do. You want to become an insider and sound more and more like a Spanish-speaking person. It helps a lot if you can talk with native speakers. You will not break out of beginner Spanish if you don't. And that means taking a certain amount of risk. This book will really help. It's got a chapter, one of the chapters I think is about how to not sound so much like a gringo. And it's great. I remember one section where it talks about how to call somebody a jerk from a level that's not too bad to something that's pretty vulgar. And knowing the difference. Even if you don't swear in Spanish, you've got to understand the swear words. If somebody's shouting something at you, you want to know what they're saying. But getting out of beginner Spanish means that you're able to use a little more complex grammar to express yourself and to be clear about when you're talking in the past. When you say, I rode my bike, in Spanish, it's pretty clear whether it means you rode your bike yesterday one time or you rode your bike all the time when you were a kid. In English, it's not so clear. There's different tenses for that in Spanish, and they're not hard. The grammar to be able to do that is not difficult stuff, but that will help you break out of beginner Spanish. Being able to have a reasonably good accent, I think it's really difficult to do that unless you're hanging out with Spanish-speaking people. I learned to pronounce my Spanish much better because my wife and I were attending a Spanish-speaking church, and there were people from 13 different countries there, and I heard all these different accents, and most of the people we met were Central Americans, so my accent tends to sound Central American. If I'm talking on the phone, people ask me, are you from Guatemala or from El Salvador or from Nicaragua? Where are you from? Because they can tell by the way that I picked up my accent what I sound like. So a little better accent, being able to express yourself in different time periods accurately, to be able to talk about the future in a way that a Spanish-speaking person would, that kind of stuff helps you to break out of beginner Spanish. And the other thing you need is you just need an awful lot of vocabulary. There's no way to do that except get lots of exposure to the language. It's not by memorizing word lists. You can do a little bit of that, but I don't think that's especially helpful. I think it's more helpful to have contact with the language in every possible way, listening to music, watching videos on YouTube even. And I also think that reading in Spanish is super helpful, especially if you find books that are designed for the level that you're at, or ideally just one little notch above where you're at. You always want to be pushing yourself just one notch up, not 10 notches up, because that'll destroy it destroys the fun and it'll frustrate you, and that's terrible. But one notch above. I'm going to talk with Ollie Richards pretty soon, and he publishes a whole series of readers that I think are fantastic. They're graded readers, and they're designed to help you pick up vocabulary in context. He's the master of language learning through storytelling, and so we'll talk with him pretty soon. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that you enjoyed this book by Joseph Keenan. And the next video I'm going to do is Breaking Out of Beginner's French. And we'll talk about that and what that sounds like, and I'll recommend a good resource for that as well. Talk to you again soon.